Perfect. Well, thank you, Lewis, and thank you everyone for hopping on this evening. As you all know, we're going to be talking about penalty relief, rules 17, 18, and 19. So a little breakdown here, depending on how familiar you are with the rules numbers, obviously penalty area 17, stroke and distance relief, and provisional balls, number 18, and then unplayable ball relief for rule number 19. So we're going to dive straight into penalty areas. There's a pretty lengthy definition when it comes to penalty areas in the book. We're going to go over that slightly. I'm then going to be talking about our options when it comes to penalty area. We have the red penalty areas and the yellows, the differences that come with those, and how to proceed when your ball is in a penalty area. We're also going to continue to talk about how to proceed once you've hit a stroke from inside a penalty area, and some other conditions of 17.3. So, as we get into this, very important to understand our definition here. Penalty area, very similar to the general area part of the course. This is sort of part of the course which you're going to be able to take relief from for that one penalty stroke, including pretty much any sort of open water course. You're often going to see these as rivers, ditches, lakes on golf courses, like designed to be obstacles for you to avoid when the course is designed. As well as those big lakes and other huge water features, the committee also has the option to define other parts of the courses as penalty areas. We often see that long grass or fescue is painted red. Courses and committees often do this to help pace of play, to save you looking in the rough for 3 minutes. They might just have you treat that as a red penalty area and drop out, but that's up to the committee to decide how they want to set up the course that day. So, as I mentioned, we have two types of penalty areas. We have yellow and we have red. I'm sure you've all seen both of these out on the course when you've been playing. Prior to 2019, you would have seen a lot more yellow. However, since those rules changes, primarily red these days that we're seeing. However, we are going to go on to talk about the both. And a little point there that if you do come across a lake or another water feature that hasn't been marked by the course of the committee, the rules tell us that the definition that we're going to be treating that as a red penalty area. The edge of the penalty area is one of those which extends both up and above the ground, as well as down below the ground. So if you imagine any lips or perhaps any sort of changes in elevation towards the edge of a penalty area, um, where that ball lies, just imagine a plane along that, whether it's the boundary or the stakes or the lines, plane going up and down, and that is going to decide where our ball, whether it lies in the penalty area, or another area of the course. So again, we're talking about what a penalty area looks like on a course. It's often going to be clearly defined by either stakes, lines, or physical features. Uh, Often there's always stakes there, typically red stakes defining, and then depending on how recently a course is marked, the course there'll be red lines too, or yellow lines if it's that. And then also the committee and course has the option of using physical features to define a penalty area, such as maybe a seawall or other kind of concrete structures. They can also be defined as a penalty area boundary. So this is just more text talking about that definition of how to define a penalty area. And it's important to understand what an area is designed to be a penalty area. So when there's a steep slope going into a lake, you're not expected to be able to play from that. So therefore, the penalty area is going to extend out the water and to a part of the course where a ball would then be able to play from. It's not always the water that we're talking about, but just an area of the course as meant to be penal. And these rules are supposed to get you out of that, even if it is with a penalty stroke. And another good point there that even if there isn't water within that area, doesn't mean that it can't be a penalty area. So it may be a ditch or a runoff or something that's designed to carry water. Even if it's dry, it may be marked as a penalty area. So what are our options? We've hit our ball into a penalty area. Um, that definition tells us that a ball is in a penalty area, whether it lies in, touches, or anything inside the penalty area that is above or inside that edge. So the player may always play the ball as it lies or take penalty relief. And they're also able to take that penalty relief if the ball is not found in that penalty area. But it must be known or virtually certain. That term you hear a lot in the rules. For us as tournament administrators, we always think about it as if you're 95% sure that ball's in the penalty area, then you're known or virtually certain. If you can reach that 95% confidence, then you're able to act and sort of follow through on these procedures. So we talked about definition. We've talked about what it means for a ball to lie in a penalty area. We're now going to talk about how we take relief from a penalty area. Now, we see here that the diagram on our right here, it's a yellow penalty area. We're going to talk about the options that we have. So you see here our player at point number 1, he's pulled his shot and he's hit it into the penalty area. So his options, of course, are to take stroke and distance relief. We can take stroke and distance relief no matter what the situation is on the golf course, whether we're taking unplayable lie, which we'll talk about, or penalty relief. We always have that option to go back to where that previous stroke was made under a penalty of 1 stroke and then replay. Our second choice and second option of relief is to go back on the line. Now you'll see that player, our relief area is number 2 here on the diagram. We've taken the point of the flag and we've taken this point X. This point X is called our reference point, and it's the point where the ball has entered the penalty area for the last time. So whether it's crossed and gone over the edge of the penalty area, it's always where it crossed that line for the last time. That's going to be our reference point. And as long as we keep that reference point between where we've dropped in the flag, we can take that ball back online as far as we want. So you see how this dotted black line extends all the way. That's how far we have all that option to drop the ball. So if we want to have a 100-yard wedge shot in, we can go back 100 yards and use that rule to our advantage there when hitting into the green. So how do we drop? So as you'll see here, for number 1, it's 1 club length, no closest to the hole. Number 2, we have a full circle. And the reason that is you can drop the ball on the line exactly, and then that creates our relief area. So once the ball has been dropped and it touches the line, the ball can roll in any direction up to 1 club length, up to any area of the course except the penalty area. So if you wanted to drop it in a bunker for some reason, you can do that. It doesn't have to be the general area. As long as it's dropped on the line and doesn't go outside that 1 club length, that ball is in play. Now, this is the big difference between yellow and red penalty areas. So yellow penalty areas, you just have those 2 relief options. We have the stroke and distance. We have the back on the line. Red penalty areas come with an additional option here. I'm sure you're aware of it, lateral relief. You'll see this diagram here on the right. That number 3 sort of segment relief area is that lateral relief. So again, you're going to use that reference point, the last point where the original ball crossed the edge of the red penalty area. And then you're going to take 2 club lengths, no closer to the hole, and that's going to be your relief area. So that's where we're dropping from knee height, and the ball has to stay within that relief area, and that's going to be how we get our ball back in play. And this is our first sort of break point in case we have any questions there. Lewis, I'm not sure if there's anything in the chat. Okay.
Yeah, just real quick, George, just one,
Hmm.
but talking about if a dry area is not marked, either red or yellow, but a picture on the course scorecard indicates the area is water, is it treated as a penalty area?
Yes. So if the course has designated that as a sort of a water feature on the scorecard, I'd take that as a good indication that that should be considered a red penalty area. I hope that helps. I'm going to keep going here, moving on to a more complicated, perhaps more complex part of taking relief from a penalty area. So as you all know, you have the option to play a ball from a penalty area. So the easiest way to do this is to look at this diagram on the right. So we lie at point A. That's our ball. It's in the penalty area. Perhaps the water isn't quite there, and like we talked about earlier, that's a dry part of the penalty area. And and we've played the ball and it remains in the penalty area. Except this time, it's not as ideal, it's not playable, and we need to take relief. Now, what are our options? So, as always, we can take that stroke and distance relief option. So, from A, we've hit it to point B, we can't find it. We can take stroke and distance relief and go back to point A and take relief at that point. We also have, just checking, yeah. So we also have the options to take relief outside the penalty area. So we can take relief at the point where the ball last crossed into the penalty area. So again, we have those lateral relief options at number 3, those 2 club lengths no closer to the hole, and we can still use that reference point from where it last crossed to take back on line relief. And in addition, we also have the extra relief option where the player may take a stroke and distance and go back to the point where they've last played the stroke from outside the penalty area. So again, we'll walk through this. We're at point A, we've hit it to point B. We want to take relief. An option of ours for one penalty stroke is to go back to that first stroke we hit outside the penalty area, take relief there, and that's how we sort of get things back on track and to continue to play the hole. Okay, this is a lot of text here. You can read it at your own will. But it's basically saying how if you play a ball from a penalty area, you then end up losing it or hitting it out of bounds, and then you take it back and you take stroke and distance and you drop it in the penalty area. Once that ball is dropped and so you drop it in the penalty area like stroke and distance, you then decide you don't want to play it. It's gone in a bad lie. You don't want to take the risk. You want to get out. You then have to take penalty relief a second time to remove yourself from that penalty area. So it's almost going to be a 1 penalty stroke for the stroke and distance, and an additional penalty stroke to remove yourself from that penalty area. A little bit more complex there. Hopefully, it doesn't come up for you at all in real life, but just that understanding of how to get that ball back in play without breaking. They call it the chain of the hole. So we never want to break the chain of progression. So that's how we get our ball back into play. Moving on. What I talked about how penalty areas are very similar to general areas in a lot of ways. We can still move loose impediments. We can still ground our club, but there are things we can't do. And that is get relief from abnormal course conditions, take relief from an embedded ball, and we cannot take an unplayable ball. Now, that last one may raise an eyebrow. That's simply because we have all of these penalty relief options at our disposal that we don't need to be taking unplayable ball relief. But we will be talking about Rule 19 going forward. Again, a little bit more complex there. I know I went over a little quickly. Just want to pause here in case there were any questions about how to take relief from a penalty area. Okay. So, stroke and distance. Again, how do we get ourselves back on play when we've lost the ball, we've hit it out of bounds? And Rule 18 also covers stroke and distance, ball lost out of bounds, and provisional balls. Okay, so definition of lost. It's another one of these key definitions that we talk about. A common misconception I always had growing up was you could declare a ball lost at any time. Now that's not true. You can take stroke and distance, but a ball is only lost when you've been searching for it for 3 minutes and that time has expired. Now it doesn't matter if you find the ball after that 3 minutes. If you've been searching for that long, that ball is now considered lost, and we're now going to proceed under stroke and distance. This is a little bit more the searching for a ball, it can get quite complex. It's talking about here how if the search begins and then is interrupted, you still get that time. Just the clock almost stops if there's an interruption there. If you're letting a group through, that doesn't count towards your 3 minutes of searching for a ball there. Another definition, out of bounds. Very important one. When a ball is lying on a golf course, it's like crucial to understand. This diagram on the right is very useful. As you can see, it's really when any part of the ball is touching or overhangs the golf course. So the best way to think about this is if you imagine a pane of glass going up and down where the inside of these stakes are, if the ball breaks that plane on the course side at all, the ball is in bounds. It's only when the ball is completely on the other side of that pane of glass is the ball out of bounds. There's a good picture here. I hope it's coming up. It isn't, but it's just another example of, yeah, just imagine that pane of glass. It's very important to understand where our ball lies on the golf course. This is more just clarification here. When defined by stakes or a fence, the boundary edge is defined by the inside, the course side of the stakes of the fence. Again, another misconception that it's the outside edge. No, it's the course side edge. Is that definition of the inside of the boundary? Same with a line on the ground. So penalty of stroke and distance, as I mentioned in penalty relief, you can take stroke and distance at any time. So whether you're taking unplayable ball relief or you're just in a situation where you think strategically it might pay off to go back to where you last played and play on from there, you have that option at any time. So the example I always think about, I'm sure a lot of you saw, was Phil Mickelson at a Shinnecock where he ran off and he putted the ball while it was still in motion, and his whole argument was, would have saved me more shots if the ball had, instead of having the ball run off the front of the green and all the way down the fairway, to just play it there. Well, actually, Phil, like you always had that option of playing stroke and distance relief. So if he really understood those rules, he would have had that option and taken it back to where he had hit that putt from for that one stroke penalty. And then our last definition or sort of explanation here is a lost ball. As I mentioned earlier, you have 3 minutes to find the ball. You must, and then if you're on the other side of the fairway and someone finds it, you're allowed to promptly identify that ball, typically around 1 minute. And that extends even if that 3 minutes has come up. And again here, ball at rest, it's out of bounds only when all of the ball is outside the boundary edge of the course, what I touched on earlier. And this is why it's so important. If the ball is lost or out of bounds, if the ball is a centimeter over that line, you must take stroke and distance relief. And then there's an exception here. As a lot of these rules have, there are exceptions. A player may substitute another ball if they know or is known or virtually certain what has happened to that ball. If someone's picked it up, it's come to rest in the penalty area. If you can't find it, there are exceptions to when that ball is lost. Okay. Any questions for this one? Again, stroke and distance is very important to understand that you always have that option. And I hope that I clarified that enough for everyone. But I hope people will jump in too if there are any questions as I go through this. Okay, so provisional balls. Again, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with these. Really a facet of the rules that are allowing people to save time by provisionally playing another ball under penalty and stroke and distance in case they can't find that original ball. So I'm sure you know, you hit your ball, it may be in trouble, you're not sure. You can play a provisional ball to save you walking back to that original spot and just keep pace of play moving. That's really the design for the provisional ball. A lot of these rules, the key understanding comes with understanding why that rule is there and what it's designed to achieve. And for this, it's simply pace of play. Now, with the play of provisional ball, there are some key factors that come with it. Mainly, you must declare that it's a provisional ball, clearly indicate it. You don't have to say, I'm declaring this under 18.3, but you do have to make it like abundantly clear. Saying I'm going to reload, I'm going to hit another isn't going to cut it, unfortunately. It has to be, I'm going to play another one just in case. I'm going to play a provisional ball. There cannot be any question there. So another sort of understanding of a provisional ball is its status in the game. The more sort of experience you come with the rules, you understand when a ball is in play and when it isn't, what the original ball is. The status of the ball is a very key facet, and the provisional ball sort of really ties into that. So again, these diagrams I find are really helpful with understanding when it comes to what ball is in play here. So a player may continue to play a provisional ball more than once up until the point where they estimate that original ball to be. So I'm going to talk about this example on the right. They've hit their original ball. They think it's in this bush here. They've hit their provisional ball to point A. Because point A is further away from the hole than where that original ball is estimated to be, they can keep playing that shot or keep playing that provisional ball. And even if they duff it, say 5 yards, and it's still further away from the hole, they can play it again. They can play it as many times as they can, while it's still further away than that original ball is estimated to be. And I think we're going to continue on here. Now, that comes with the important understanding that once they play the ball from closest to the hole than where that original ball is estimated to be, that substituted ball, that provisional ball, is now the ball in play. So again, they've played the ball to A, provisional ball, they've hit it to B. Once they hit it from B onto the green, B is now the ball in play, regardless of if they begin searching or if they find that original ball. Because they've played B from closest to the hole, B is now that ball in play. Now, with that being said, there are sort of things here which to keep in mind when it comes to if someone finds this original ball, you're obligated to go and identify it. But that being said, if you like where A is, you're not obligated to go and look for it, if that makes sense. And I think there's a slide coming up here which will touch on that a little bit more. But you may play a provisional ball whenever the provisional ball is lost anywhere on the course except in a penalty area or out of bounds. Now, if you see a ball go towards a penalty area and you think it might be in there, you're not allowed to take a provisional ball. Now, it's because if your ball's in the penalty area, you're going to be proceeding under penalty area relief. I was expecting one more slide here, but I'll take any questions now of provisional balls. I know I touched a few examples there. I hope I clarified enough for everyone. If not, we will be moving on shortly. Okay. So, unplayable balls. Again, these are all relief options for how to get your ball out of an unfavorable situation when in the general area or on the putting green. As 9.1 said, you can take unplayable ball relief anywhere except in the penalty area. And as discussed, though, that's because we have those penalty area relief options to get us out of that penalty area anyway. So these rules will not apply. 9.2, as I said, goes over those options. Very similar options to penalty area relief, but we'll still go over those. Again, it's very important to have this understanding so we can really use these rules to our advantage when out on the course. You can really save yourself some strife by having the rules play for your advantage. And then lastly, 19.3 touches some unplayable ball relief in bunkers. There's some good notes here. If you're struggling with bunkers, there are relief options to get you out. So we will cross all of these as we go along. So as I mentioned, a player may take unplayable ball relief anywhere on the course except in the penalty area. Now, whether it's four ball or foursomes, the player is the only person who may decide to treat his or her ball as unplayable. Even if your caddy is 100 yards ahead and sees the ball first and is confident that you wouldn't want to hit that, they don't have the right to declare that ball unplayable. It's only the player who has that ability to make that decision. So, what are our options? Again, I'm going to rely on these diagrams a lot. I really take a lot more out of these than the paragraphs we have in the rule book. But the player, as always, has that option to take stroke and distance. So we see our golfer in the fairway here. Unfortunately, she's hit a bit of a shank and she's hit into this bush. Now, she always has that option to go back to where she hit that first shot from. One penalty stroke, She can drop it within one club length, no closer to the hole, and she can continue on from there. But what if she doesn't like where she hit from, and what if she has other options? Well, she also has back on line relief. So again, very similar to our penalty area relief. She in this time, instead of using the reference point of where it crossed into the penalty area, she has to use where that ball lies. Now, um, she's going to go back online, keeping the ball where the ball lies in between her and the flag, and she can go back as far as she wants. So whether it's 5 yards behind the bush, 100 yards behind the bush, as long as she's keeping that spot in line, it's up to her discretion about how far back she goes. And as we talked about, the old rule used to be you can drop anywhere in this circle. These new rules coming in 2023, you have to drop that ball on the line exactly, and it can roll up to one club length in any direction. So as you can see on the right, it's a full circle. So even if you drop the ball on the line here and it rolls 2 feet forward towards the hole, as long as it's inside that relief area, that's an acceptable drop and you're good to go. Often we have this conception that as soon as a ball rolls towards the hole, that ball is not in the relief area and I have to redrop. Back on line relief is a little different here. So it's important we have that understanding. So like I said, one club length, any direction. And again, that's in any area of the course. So not to steal too much from Rule 14, but when I say any area of the course, ball has to land and then stay in the same area of the course. So if you drop it on the line here and it rolls into the bunker, that is not a good drop. So we have to keep it in the relief area has to be the same part of the course, but if that part of the course decides to be a bunker or somewhere else, then that's acceptable. And then lastly, we have lateral relief. So again, sorry, going back. So lateral relief, we have these two club lengths. We can go no clearance to the hole using that same reference point, and again, any area of the course. There's a good example here of when you able to drop onto the putting green again. Like I saw a scenario where there's a red penalty area. You can use that red lateral relief to drop that ball onto the putting green, providing that ball lands and stays in that area of the course. And again, you'll notice here that lateral relief is the only relief option that uses two club lengths. The other two are one club length. So again, that little bit of knowledge is really useful on the course when dropping outside of a bush laterally, you can use those two club lengths to get you a little further away. Okay. So we're now going to move on to our relief options in the bunker. Again, we're going to look at our player here in the fairway. She's hit it a little bit of a push. Oh, he this time has hit a little bit of a push into the bunker on the right. It looks like it's plugged under the lip. It's in the bunker. What options does he have? So, as always, even if it takes him outside the bunker, he can take stroke and distance relief to go back to where he hit that ball from. He could also take back on line relief to point number 2. These are all applying the same way. So back on line, ball lands on that line between the reference point and the flag. It can roll up to one club length, in any direction. And then 3, just checking out, I'm not missing a slide here, but 3, he can take a lateral drop, no closer to the hole. But the key with the bunkers is relief options 2 and 3, the back on the line and lateral relief, they have to stay in the bunker. So you cannot take 2 club lengths sideways and drop outside the bunker. If you're going to use those options as unplayable ball, you have to drop it inside the bunker. Now, as I'm sure you just saw just now, there is an extra relief option. And this is very useful if you're not a big fan of bunkers or if you're in a really, really nasty bunker, you can get yourself out. And this is the same function as before, back on line relief. We're going to take the ball, go through our reference points to the flag, and we're going to extend that backwards. And this time we can go outside the bunker, but it is going to cost us another penalty stroke. So for two penalty strokes, we can remove ourselves from the bunker. We might then have to hit back over the bunker, but for now, at least it will get us out. Okay, any questions with that? We do often see a few questions with this one. It's a little bit more complicated, a little bit more for you, a little bit more moving parts involved, different areas of the course. We're a little bit ahead of schedule here, so I just wanted to pause and see if we have any questions. Lewis in the chat.
Yeah, not necessarily directly correlated to unplayable ball, but just taking a backtrack for a second.
Hmm.
Um, Amy was asking about if you could clarify between a lost ball and a provisional ball, that if you play the provisional ball, are you still obligated to search for 3 minutes before that original ball is lost? Um, just talking about the obligation to either play the original ball or play the provisional ball and searching there after you play one or the other.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, a great point. I'm just going to pop back to this slide here. Um, so I believe it was this one. So the question was, when are you obligated to search for that original ball? If you are, and the honest answer is you're never obligated to search for that ball. So if you've hit it over to the left here and it's a really nasty part of the course, and even if you find it, you're probably going to have to take unplayable ball relief anyway. There's no obligation to go and look for it. So if you like a provisional ball, you can just continue playing that um, all the way throughout the hole and just continue with that. And like I said, as soon as you play that ball and that provisional ball from closest to the hole than where you estimate that original ball to be, that is now the ball in play. However, the one thing I will say here is in match play, you may be playing against someone who doesn't have your best intentions in mind, and they may want to go and find that ball because it gives them advantage if you're playing from a undesirable place in the court. So even if you instruct your opponent or playing partner, hey, I really don't want to find that ball, they are under no obligation to not look. So you can continue on your way and continue to your provisional ball and play that. But if your playing partner or your opponent in match play wants to go and look for your original ball, there's nothing stopping them. And just to continue along that thread there, if they were to identify a ball, you are then obligated to go and identify that. So um, it's one of those where you're not going to make any friends that way. But if you wanted to go and look for someone's ball, and if they've asked you not to, then if you find that for them, then they're going to have to proceed or identify and then proceed with that ball if that's their original ball. Um, so I hope that answers your question. I'm not sure if we have any more on this topic because it can get quite complicated with original ball, especially if there's multiple involved.
There was just a follow-up from Amy as well, George, about
Yeah.
for an unplayable ball, having to find the ball, knowing the location of that ball for an unplayable.
Yes. So very good points. We go forward here. So yes, it's a very good point. To be able to play under this take unplayable ball relief, we have to know the location of this original ball if we're going to use lateral relief or um, back on line relief. If we want to take stroke and distance, we don't need to know where that ball is. We always have that option. But in order to take back on line relief or lateral relief, we need to know where this original ball is because um, that's how we take our reference point. So even if you know it's in the bush and like you're confident it went in there, you're known virtually certain that the ball lies somewhere in that bush, unless you can identify its exact location and identify your ball and find your ball, you won't be able to act under back online relief or lateral ball relief. I think we had a hand raised at some point. Let me see.
Yeah, I think I did see a hand raise. If someone had a hand raise, just either feel free to unmute yourself or drop it in the chat.
I believe unplayable ball here was our last topic as well. So I'm happy to open things up to, let me make double check, but I'm happy to open things up to some more questions if anyone has any, perhaps not on 17, 18, or 19.
Hey
Yes,
George,
that was the end.
one other thing about just a question. I don't know if it got answered or if it got skipped over, but a question about multiple provisional balls. So if
Mm,
multiple provisional balls have been played, how do you either count up the strokes? How do you sort all that out? What's the kind of thing there if multiple provisionals are played?
yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm just skipping through here. Um, Multiple provisional balls, you have to continue that to think about the sequence and the order that you played them. Excuse me here. I'm just going to find this slide because it is quite useful. This one. Yeah. So you've hit your original ball into the bush. You've hit your provisional ball also into the bush. At some point, we need to get a ball in play so that we can continue and finish out the hole. Um, so you have 3 minutes to search for this original ball. And presuming that the provisional ball is in a different area, we get another 3 minutes to look for that. So it's it sort of ticks by where the original ball, you search for that, you have 3 minutes. As soon as that 3 minutes is up, that original ball is lost. You then go to where you think your provisional ball is, you search for that for 3 minutes, and if you can't find that, that ball is now lost. So that you then even need to go ahead and play your second provisional ball, or in the worst case scenario where you can't find your second provisional ball either, we're then going to have to go back to the tee and play a third provisional ball to get a ball back into play here. Now, if your original ball and your provisional ball are in the same area, you're only going to get 3 minutes to search for those as well. So if you've hit them into the exact same area and the search area is the same, you don't get, but you get 3 minutes. But whenever we're doing this, we always have to get something back into play. So it's important that we're identifying these balls so we know which is which. There's a scenario which the rules talks about where we've hit our original ball into one location, we've hit our provisional ball into the same location, and we can't tell which is which. We've just out of frustration, out of hurry, we've grabbed another ball brand new out of the sleeve, and we've hit it into the same area, and we find a ball, but we don't know if it's the original ball or the provisional ball. So what do we do? Now, in this scenario, the rules tell us that we have to pick a ball to act as our provisional ball. So there's no way that we're going to be able to use either of those as our original ball. One of them is the provisional ball. You have to choose which is more likely and proceed with that going forward. So whenever we're on a tricky hole or in general, always very important that we understand how we can identify that ball, whether it's with a Sharpie or a number or a logo. It's always very important that we can identify that.
Couple more questions, George. There's a
Yeah.
question about an unplayable ball in a bunker due to rain or
Ah,
anything else similar to that. But
yep. So we'll find this diagram of the bunker. So um, we have a bunker here. Say it's rained a lot. There is a great diagram in the rules book. Unfortunately, it's not in this slide due to time, but imagine a big puddle in this bunker here. Now, the rules tell us that we're dealing with temporary water, an abnormal course condition, and presuming we're known or virtually certain that that ball is in this puddle in the bunker, there are certain things that we can proceed with. So we get free relief from the temporary water in the bunker, the puddle. We get to you have a free drop to the nearest point of complete relief, but again, it has to be within that bunker. So we cannot use that free relief to get ourselves out of the bunker. Instead, we're taking no closer to the hole, one club length relief, dropping it in the bunker to get ourselves away from that temporary water. Now, I've often seen, especially courses over in England, rains a huge amount, and sometimes the bunker is completely submerged under water. Now, often the committee will mark that as ground under repair, the whole bunker, so you're getting to relief from that whole bunker if it's marked white. However, in the rare cases it's not, how do we proceed under the rules? We know the ball, you've seen it splash, you've known it go into this huge puddle or pond that is now the bunker. We're going to be taking maximum available relief. So there isn't space in that bunker there to take complete relief. There's too much water. We can't take our stance without standing in the water, but we're going to find the area of the bunker no closer to the hole, which provides the least interference from that water, and we're going to proceed from there. Now, an important note is we're able to take back and line relief in this scenario and get out of the bunker, but it's only one penalty stroke. So if you really don't want to get your shoes wet and you want to get out of the bunker, the rules allow you to do that with one penalty stroke. So again, little things to keep in mind when dealing with these unfortunate situations, which can sort of help you out in these cases. I hope that was a good explanation without a diagram, but happy to take any more questions if there are any.
A little more, George. If there's no red line around the water, do you take lateral relief from the edge of the water, or where would you find that reference point?
Gosh, that's a good question. My understanding, Lewis, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're almost estimating where the natural slope goes into that penalty area, or where you believe that penalty area begins. So sometimes there's a lip around a pond, or there's an embankment, but you're sort of making your best judgment there as to where that penalty area begins and the general area ends. Um, and then from there, you're using your best judgment to take a reference point of where it crossed, where it left the general area, entered the penalty area, and then you are still able to take lateral and back of line relief from there. But yeah, often it does happen. But again, you're using your best option of best judgment of where the water ends, perhaps where you can take a stance where the slope isn't too big. Um, and that's sort of the point where you're getting your ball back into play.
One more in the chat about if a ball's hit up into a tree, your shirt went in there, but it didn't come down. It's possible you might even see a ball up there, but can't possibly identify it as yours. Is it a lost ball? Is it unplayable? What's the deal there?
Sure, absolutely. And I know they have a lot of these down in Florida with those big palm trees, so it's definitely a case that happens, unfortunately. Um, in this case, you're still going to get reasonable time to identify the ball. So if you've hit your ball into the palm tree, you can see a ball up there. You have reasonable time to identify it, whether that's through binoculars, whatnot. Now, and if you can identify it, then we can act under unplayable ball relief. So in that scenario, we can see our ball up into the tree. We're known or virtually certain it's our ball. We can take the point exactly underneath where that ball is in the tree, and that's going to be our reference point. So we're going to come straight down, and that's going to be our reference point, whether we're taking back on line relief, 2 club lengths. Um, that's how we're going to get our ball back in play. And also remember, whenever we're taking relief, or whether it's free relief or penalty relief, you can always substitute a ball. So please don't feel the need to go and try and get that ball. If it's any kind of unplayable ball relief, we always have the option to put a new ball into play. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're taking relief. There's no need to have consternation about that ball up in the tree. You can take one out of your bag and just get it back into play. Now, in the scenario where you cannot identify that ball, as frustrating as it may be that you've seen the ball fly straight into the tree and not come out, unless we can identify that ball, we cannot act under back on line relief or lateral relief. And this is one of those scenarios where we always have stroke and distance relief. And although technically It's unplayable ball relief. The option to have lateral relief or back online relief isn't possible for us because we don't know the exact location of that ball. We may know it's in the tree, but unless we can identify it and know its exact location, we cannot act under lateral or back online, unfortunately. So our only option is to take stroke and distance in that case.
One other question pops up, George,
Mhm.
and there may need some clarification here on some information on the
Okay.
question, but I'll quote it to you. I hit my drive into the junk that never crosses into play outside the red line. I hit a provisional into the fairway, find the original ball, but it is unplayable. Can I play my provisional, or do I have to go back and put another ball into play?
Well, the first thing that sort of caught my attention in that statement is you've hit your ball into the junk and it's in the penalty area. You cannot take provisional ball in that scenario. If you know your ball is in the penalty area, your only options are to take stroke and distance or penalty relief of some kind. If it's never crossed, I think the question was if it's never crossed the other side, or if there's no reference point further up, at some point it's gone from the teeing area into the penalty area, whether it's a foot off the front of the tee box, it's crossed into the penalty area at some point, and at that point, that's where our reference point is going to be for taking penalty relief. Um, Lewis, what was the second half of that question? Sorry.
Just the part of was, do I have to play, or can I play my provisional, or do I have to go back and put another ball into play?
Um, just looking. Well, in that case, your provisional ball is a stroke and distance ball. Um, so although you may declare it a provisional ball, if your ball's in the penalty area, you have no option to play a provisional ball. And therefore, if you've hit another ball off the tee box, you've unknowingly taken stroke and distance. So that's the ball in play. That's what you're going to continue to play the hole out with. Now, it's important to know what we're doing here because it's very easy to fall into some wrong ball, wrong place sort of issues here. Um, but yeah, if you've played another ball from the tee box when the provisional ball isn't an option, you've played stroke and distance, if that makes sense. I'm just looking in the chat. I don't see any more questions, but happy to take any more if anyone has any. Also, feel free to unmute yourself too if you have any questions. Um, Lewis, do you have any questions?
Interesting question. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, Mike.
Oh, hi. Yeah, this is a new computer, so I'm figuring out
Oh,
all the bugs.
no
So
problem.
we were in a stroke play golf tournament one time where they brought the tee backs to the tips, and we had a feller that was teeing off and he couldn't get over a lateral hazard into the green play, and he literally was like 1, 3, 5,
Mm.
7, 9, and was like, I concede or give up. It was like, well, it's stroke play, you have to go. And obviously, if you give them advice, that's a penalty. But we were like, do you want us to look for your ball? And so we did that, and we found one of his balls up there in the junk in the high weeds, and he got out of that. But what when people start hitting provisionals, should they be marking their balls differently in case their ball lands in the same place?
Yes,
Or is that
absolutely.
just geeking on too many rules?
No, no, no. That's a great question, and obviously an unfortunate situation there for your playing partner. It's as a tournament administrator, that's sort of one of our worst fears is setting up a course in a way where one of your competitors won't be able to carry a penalty area and you get really stuck and there's not much option apart from keep going and hoping you find all of your balls up there. But to answer the second part of your question, yes, it's vital that you are able to identify every ball that you put into play, whether as your ball in play or as a provisional ball. Um, in this scenario, if he's hit four balls off the tee, each as provisional balls, and he gets up there, and he can't figure out which one's which, whichever one he decides to play, that's the last ball he hit. So he's taking all of those stroke and distance options or penalties, and he's going to end up with a very large number. So whether it's putting a one dot, two dot, I know people who have one or two yellow balls in their bag for provisional balls. Um, excuse me, however you want to do it, it's imperative that you really understand and I can identify which ball you play. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, otherwise it's worst case scenario. We're going to assume the first ball that he's playing and found was the last ball hit.
Yeah,
And I think that's what.
exactly. Yeah. So if he can't identify which ball is which, um, whichever if he's on provisional ball 3 or 4 or whichever the last provisional ball he is, that's going to be the continuation of the chain there to continue the hole and get into play. But good question.
George, there's another question in the chat. I don't know if you want me to read it to you, if you just want to address it.
Yeah, this is from Terry. Terry's question is, if you play a provisional ball because the original ball might be lost or it could be in a penalty area, you can, if you find the original ball in the penalty area, the provisional must be abandoned. Um, so this all hinges on that known or virtually certain sort of phrase. So if you've hit a ball towards a penalty area, and there's a chance it might not be in the penalty area, you can hit a provisional ball just in case. However, if you've hit a ball and you're known or virtually certain that the only option is in the penalty area, you cannot hit a provisional ball. So therefore, if you've called a provisional ball and the ball can only be in the penalty area, that ball you just hit is now stroke and distance. So I hope that makes sense. I know I sort of got through that pretty quickly, but if you don't have the option to play a provisional ball, whatever ball you re-tee and put into play, that's your ball in play, and you've taken stroke and distance relief. Now, just looking at this question again, if you've it's my understanding, again, Lewis, correct me if I'm wrong here, but if you've hit a ball and you're not sure if it's in the penalty area or not, and you hit a provisional ball and you get up there and find it in the penalty area, that's your ball in play and that's a new situation and you're just going to continue from there. So if you want to play it from the penalty area, you can. If you want to take penalty relief, you can. But that provisional ball just goes away entirely at that point because you found your original ball. I hope that makes sense, Terry, because all of these scenarios, it's vital to understand the chain of events and sort of I talk about the chain a lot. I always think about it as it's a chain of shots to get you from the tee box to the hole. And the minute we break that chain by losing a ball or taking penalty relief, we have to reconnect that chain and get a ball back into play from the correct place in the correct way. Question from Mike here. Can you explain drop areas available outside penalty areas and how penalties are assessed? Yes, well, Mike, drop areas or drop zones are simply an additional relief option provided by the committee, whoever's setting up the course, as an option to take under penalty relief. Now, often they're circles, but if you hit a ball into the penalty area, that's just another relief area for you. So it's just imagine another one of these diagrams here on the right where um, just imagine another relief circle for that relief area. So you're dropping from the height, you put the ball into play, and you're continuing on in that area. Now, I'm trying to think what else comes with drop areas, but typically they're on the tee box or at a point where you're not gaining a huge advantage. But again, this is another case where a committee might put one into play for maybe an area of the course that might be a little difficult to figure out reference areas or where to drop, and it might just help pace the play by just having an area where people can just drop and go from there. You can also find drop areas by no play zones. If there's a no play zone and you get free relief from it, and then they might have a drop area for you there. I know in the professional sort of side of things, they have drop zones for TIOs or temporary immovable objects like grandstands. They might have drop zones there. But just think of it as another relief area for you. Yes, that is under penalty of 1 stroke. So, yep. So you hit your ball into the lake. You can just drop one penalty stroke and continue on from there. Just very similar to all other of the penalty relief options. I think we're coming up on 7 o'clock here, unless anyone else has any last minute questions. Happy to stay on for a few minutes here. Lewis, I'm not sure if you have any other comments or points.
Nope. The only other thing I had was, again, thanks everyone for hopping on with us tonight. We always appreciate your participation and you joining us. So thanks again. Like I mentioned, the recording of this one will be up on the CJ website. It will replace the Zoom link that you clicked on to access tonight's meeting. So that'll replace that Zoom link here in the next couple days. But as our last questions roll in, just thanks again for joining us.
Lewis, quick question here from Colleen about where she can find the link to our videos. Is it on YouTube, I presume?
You can go to the YouTube channel, but again, if you're looking for any of the previous sessions from this year, on that Rules of Golf seminars page on the CJ website, the recording replaces the Zoom link after each session. So any Zoom link that was clicked to access the session, the recording will always replace that Zoom link after we're done.
Thank you again, everyone. As you'll see, we have another seminar in 2 weeks on a Tuesday. I believe it's rules 15 and 16 for free relief. I look forward to seeing a lot of you there.